Welcome back to episode 165 of the Block Runner Podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Iman.
What up, what up?
On the sticks, we got TJ.
Hello.
All right. So we've spent a whole week. We've been working on Mscribe. We finally released on Tuesday.
Yeah, man.
And it's been
one hell of a week. Yeah. The Bitoshi Blockamoto parcel inscription standard went live as of a few days ago.
Yep. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Parcel or transaction ID .blockheight.bitmap.
That's the simple component. I think the major pain point at the moment is the tapping.
The tapping, yeah.
Yeah, because as of right now, Bitmap.land is the only like platform that is enabling this like function.
Yeah.
But we're on our way, Mscribe, to also incorporating this as part of like the platform experience.
Correct.
Because as we all know, this is one of the publishings that came from Blockamoto. This is part of the standard.
Yeah, it's a very important one too.
And yeah, could you describe the issue of what is it that we're trying to account for here with this?
Okay, so
front running, right?
Yeah, so when it comes to tapping, the reason why tapping exists, and really we got to understand is like when Blockamoto or we come up with something that's there, it's there for a reason. It's not nothing that we do is going to be arbitrary.
Right.
It's important. So what is tapping? So imagine you own a bitmap and you have 2,000 parcels.
Okay.
You can list it for sale on a marketplace, and then as it's listed, you can also go and inscribe all those parcels.
Right.
Right. You spend $4,000 at the same time. Yeah.
While it's like on the market.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So then I come in, I see your bitmaps, like I want that one.
It's got a lot of parcels on there.
Yeah. Here's $50 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I got my bitmap.
Yeah.
And then in a scenario where there's no such thing as tapping, then your parcels are valid, and I got an empty bitmap. Right.
Yeah.
So that's a little unfair, right? So tapping is when instead of you inscribe all your parcels, you have to send that district back to yourself.
Yeah.
And that indicates to the indexers that all the parcels that you inscribed are now valid because you maintain ownership of that district for that time being. For that period of time, I should say.
So that self-swapping is like the verification that like, I was the owner.
And I still own the district when I inscribe the parcels.
Correct. So now the indexers can, in between like those two like points in times of the state of that district.
Correct.
What happened in between is like the parcel inscriptions. That now is verified and now can be, I guess, displayed as far as like all platforms, right? Whenever
correct. So now all platforms are, let's say they're connected to track.
Yeah.
They're saying that bitmap that you are now listing has 0 parcels available to inscribe.
Right. Exactly.
So me as a purchaser, as a user, I'll look at that district. It's like, I could still want it, right? I could.
Yeah.
Or I could be like, hey, this doesn't have any parcels. I'm going to move on.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, so it's keeping the market much more true and like authentic and trying to eliminate scammers as much as possible or exploiters, what do you want to call them?
Yeah.
So it's a necessary thing. And I think that was realized, I think, later, right? And that's why like this standard kind of like took a little bit longer to come out than expected.
Yeah.
But it's out and it's and now all the platforms are scrambling, I guess, to kind of like integrate this as part of their, platform experience, because we're not going to have like a good, healthy market until like, all these pieces are implemented, right? So, so it's looking good so far,
And right now, if you own a bunch of bitmaps, you don't have to inscribe your parcels, right? And
you don't. Yeah, there's that. That's another part of the messaging that's kind of unclear. Like people are kind of afraid. It's like, oh shit, like I don't know how this got out there, but some people are under the impression that if you don't inscribe your parcels, somehow you're going to lose them all.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
I'm not sure where that came from, but like there's nothing forcing any of this, right? It's all like an optional.
Yeah,
ability.
And this has to be part of the standard, the parcel standard. It's not because people have like an interpretation of bitmaps as like a token. Like all of a sudden there's 800 million parcels and like somehow that dilutes something. All it is, the standard, is just allows a way for a project to say, hey, I'm building this thing and I want you to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So you can inscribe my parcels, or I can send you my parcel inscriptions to be part of my community. And it's a framework to do that.
Correct. And it's a non-arbitrary one, which is
Correct.
very, 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 very important and very much overlooked, I think, at the moment, as far as like what the market is interpreting as what is valuable about bitmaps.
Right.
And a lot of that comes from like a lot of people's inexperience of actually being involved in the metaverse space, right?
Yeah.
Like we have an advantage in the sense that we've been dealing with the metaverse for 4 years.
Yeah.
And we've seen it all up until this point, right?
Yeah.
Bitmap is like the first thing we've seen like completely original and unique. It's like, oh shit, this is cool because of the fact that these like inception parameters are non-arbitrary, right?
Correct.
And from all historical contexts, they've always been arbitrary. They lead to big problems like siloing and fragmentation and, you know, and competing
centralization in terms of design.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the best part about Bitmap is that everybody can now be a piece of the metaverse and come up with anything to kind of build on top of it.
Right. Yeah, correct. But there's still like that identification system is so critically important because that is going to be like the cohesion units.
100%.
For the whole thing. Like no matter what stacks you deploy on top of these different layers, like it's still all connected by something. There's a root.
Yeah, correct.
Bitmap is the root.
Yes. Know? And here's why that root is important. It's because like you're saying, if we're going to have thousands, hundreds of thousands of developers, they all need to be developing on top of a standard.
Right.
Right. So, because that's how all the developers are going to exist in an ecosystem where we can interoperate.
Yeah. So describe what interoperability is, because that is something very important in all respects, you know, for blockchain, but, you know, the metaverse, a lot of people identify that is the killer, like, feature, I guess, of the metaverse. Like, that's going to be what gets us to Ready Player One, I guess.
Yeah,
you know?
so instead of, like, going in, like, to the deepest of the rabbit holes, I think we should start with reality. Like, for example, you could explain interoperability as, like, our human bodies, right, and our identities, right? Our human bodies and our identities are interoperable between different countries.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I can go to China and I'm still the same person.
Yeah.
My bank account is still the same. Right? My ownership of property is still the same.
Yeah, it's not like every time you cross like a border, it's like restart.
You have a new identity.
It's like there's somebody there. It's like, all right, yeah, like taking down what's your new name?
Yeah.
Your new social security is like every single time. You got money in you?
It's like,
take it away. It's like now you're starting at zero, buddy.
Like everyone else.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. That is the opposite of interoperable, right?
Correct.
So basically, all those critical things that make up like your physical soul, your existence in physical reality. It's traversable. It follows you wherever you go.
That's right.
So that's that same like expectation, I guess.
Okay, so let's go one level deeper. Let's talk about the internet, right? And operating systems. Yeah. So JPEG, GIFs, PNGs, MP4s, all those items are interoperable between different operating systems.
Yeah.
Right? Every operating system recognizes those primitives.
Yeah.
Right? Text, right? All that stuff. All that stuff is interoperable.
Yeah.
So that's very important, right? Imagine if you developed an operating system and like you have a whole new system for JPEGs, like it's called JPI.
Nice.
Like, then how am I going to send you an image, right? If I'm in this ecosystem, Apple or Windows, how am I going to send you an image?
I know.
If your operating system can't recognize this stuff.
100%. Yeah, that is a big problem, right? And that's where we are in the metaverse space, pretty much. Like because of the fragmentation and the siloing of everything, right? Everybody's coming up with their own unique like operating systems, and they're not operating from like any kind of standard framework. So it's like I said, there's no cohesion, there's no interlinking of anything at the moment, and that's a big problem.
Yeah.
But eventually, over time, like that's usually how like all ecosystems usually like start out. But over time, these things always become interconnected down the line, right? The same thing's happening right now with blockchain.
Yeah.
Right. So it's gonna happen in the metaverse space, and that's why we're so like Bitmap. You know, we're so like pumped about it because we've been waiting for something like this, right?
Yeah.
If you've been following us for the last several years, we've been talking about like how the thing that's missing from the metaverse are the standards and the frameworks. Correct. Right? Yeah,
and you know, we've been waiting for something like Bitmap, but we didn't even know that something like Bitmap could be possible.
It's true. Yeah, we were thinking more like on the technical side of like frameworks and we're thinking more on the application layer and operating system layer. Like we didn't even know there was like a layer like even but beneath that
Right.
that was like more primitive.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what Bitmap is. It's the most primitive like layer.
Yeah.
But that it kind of gets the whole developer ecosystem aligned. Like, yeah, we do need to all have this cohesion, right? And whatever frameworks we start to develop on top of this, it has to apply throughout.
Correct.
So we're gonna bring up like something happening now that it's kind of like a representation of it's not this project, and we had them on this channel like a week or two ago.
Yeah,
they're not really operating under that cohesion alignment.
Yeah,
from what we're seeing, right?
Did you know that we're more than just a YouTube channel? We also built Mscribe, the first inscription platform built from the ground up for the metaverse on Bitcoin. Connect your Bitmap ordinals and use our tools to bring your community into the virtual realm. Support us by joining the movement at mscribe.io. Like, comment, and subscribe for the latest alpha. Back to the video. All right, so let's talk about this. Okay, it says the countdown is close. Our Bitmap sale begins. Get ready to join xSpectre on Bitmap Island, powered by Blockamoto's Bitmap Theory. All right, so we interviewed Dirk and we interviewed Bob Way from xSpectre, and we spent an hour with these guys talking about Bitmap Island. We talked about the internet.
Yeah, the thing that really grabbed our attention is they acquired 3,500 bitmaps.
Yes, 3,500 bitmaps.
We're like, holy Toledos, right? Yeah. And they already had basically like some sort of stack.
Yeah.
Like ready to go, like a Unreal Engine stack.
Correct.
Right? And they've been building in anticipation of doing like a virtual environment launch on Ripple, right? XRP. Yeah. So this is it.
Yeah. So so now they're going to do a launch, and I wanted to explain something that it's important to understand. We purchased 3,500 bitmaps that will be up for sale. Each will be connected to a specific parcel on a specific location on Bitmap Island. Each parcel will consist of 1, 2, 4, or 8 plots.
Okay.
Randomly and fairly distributed.
Oh, it is randomly. Okay.
All will same price. All will be same price. Reveal after sellout.
Yeah.
So.
Very much like PFP-esque, right?
Yes.
You go back to the PFP days, it's like, yeah, here's these art pieces.
Correct.
They're all unique, I guess. Buy them, and they're all the same price, like 0.1 ETH or whatever.
Yeah.
And then at some point, we're going to just have this grand reveal. Everyone's going to be like, yo, this is what I got. It's kind of like the same thing, but like metaverse style, right? Yeah. Like you're going to find out exactly, I guess, where you're positioned on this island and how many plots you randomly were assigned.
Correct. So, so now first we're introducing like new nomenclature, right? Plots, right? In the context of Bitmap.
Correct.
Right. And so remember with bitmaps, you acquire a bitmap. It's a district.
Yeah.
And the district contains parcels.
Yeah.
Right. And so now they're talking about plots. So let's see what a plot is. So a plot is basically a unit of one of these guys. So for example, we have total plots on the right, and then we have the parcel name. So they have plots to parcels versus Bitmap has parcels to districts. Okay. So when they talk about 1, 2, 4, or 8, they're talking about 1 unit, 2, 4, or 8. Right. And so it looks like in one of these images below, like they have essentially a map of the island. Right. And so of that island, you're going to see...
You lost that one too, dude. God dang. Your Twitter management is off, Willis.
It is, but it's also... I mean, here we go.
Here's a representation. It's 3D visualized. This one's actually better. It's up close and personal.
Yeah, it's
the other one was way more like top down.
Yeah, and so... And still, it's not clear exactly like what a plot situation is going to be here.
I think you can kind of like make it out if you zoom in. You see like... Well, yeah, I guess you're right. Go to the left a bit. I see like some squares to the left. I don't know. Maybe like some of those squares is like one plot.
Yeah. So yeah, that's like.
I mean, if you're familiar with Decentraland, it's kind of like plots and estates, right? Like estates are a collection of plots that have been basically bound together to form a larger land unit.
Correct.
So it's going to be very much similar, right? If you get something of a larger plot quantity, in theory, obviously, you can deploy something bigger.
Right.
You have more space within this virtual environment.
So, and the whole idea here is that Bitmap allows developers like xSpectre to rely on the non-arbitrariness of a given district or world.
Right. So, okay, I guess yeah, we did a pretty crappy job of laying out exactly what xSpectre is doing because we were all over the place with the tweets and stuff. But I think we got the gist. Right? They're deploying a virtual environment called Bitmap Island, and it looks like this. And they're going to distribute or leverage the bitmaps as like a land distribution mechanism, right? And none of the actual like things that are innately valuable to the bitmap itself and like part of the Bitoshi bitmap theory are actually being applied
correct
here in this specific scenario, right? Because if you go and look at any typical bitmap, there's usually like thousands of transactions, so therefore there's thousands of actual units of ownership within an individual bitmap, right?
Yeah. So I guess the question is how do you own a bitmap like 799.563, which looks like this, and like this represents a plot in this virtual world. Yeah. Like where's the connection between the two? And so that's the question that we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I guess, and it's a discussion that I think now is the right time to have because these are some of the earliest pioneers, earliest developers trying to build something of value on top of Bitmap, right? So this is the time to kind of like postulate, what is the right way to do these things? Is there a right way to do things? Can you do it the way that xSpectre is doing it? That's fine, right? Yeah. But what are the potential long-term ramifications of? Basically, from my interpretation, this is 100% operating outside the bounds of the standard that is Bitmap, right? The whole purpose of this was to introduce a non-arbitrary, like almost like organic mechanism as far as like how do you terraform a virtual environment.
Yeah, and it makes everybody's lives easier because now you don't have to select an arbitrary size or an arbitrary parameters to segregate the ownership of everything. It's all like there, right? It's there already. Yeah, and it's important too because there's going to be future, like we said, Bitmap is just like the most primitive root layer to this whole metaverse ecosystem that's going to enable things like interoperability. Yes. And we know that because we've dealt with metaverse ecosystems in the past. And one of the more critical technical, I guess, bits of information is like the actual geospatial identification system of like all the different, developer bandwidth units within a virtual environment. So that is the parcels themselves. We're not going to be able to build, I guess, like content that is interoperable between bitmaps unless like every single developer is building these virtual environments are kind of they're leveraging the standard to have a cohesive ID system. Yeah. Right. Again, basically what I'm saying is this is another silo. Right? Yeah. Yeah. And that ID system is already there, right? One parcel, like for example, I'll show you, right? This is data from the blocks themselves, right? One parcel is going to be, starts with the first transaction is transaction 0. Right, that's the ID, right? That is the ID, yeah. And so if different developers are not recognizing that, it's going to be difficult for developers who are leveraging the standard to deploy content on projects that are not respecting the standard. Because let's keep in mind, like most of the people who are actually going to own land in the metaverse, they're not builders, they're not developers. They're not going to be able to actually create and deploy their own content. Correct. They're going to need the ability to, I guess, like source this content from other developers in the form of, applications or whatever, just different deployment mechanisms to, bring this digital value into their virtual environment. So again, we can't build that system unless like everybody at the foundational layer is respecting like basically the ID system. Yeah. Right. So if I zoom in here and we're looking at this particular bitmap, if I select the first one, it's transaction number 0, right? And so this gives all developers the exact same information. Exactly. Right. Yeah. So this is the interoperable standard, right? This ID system. And so every developer who builds on top of Bitmap should be leveraging it so that other developers who are building something for every transaction 0, right? They can deploy this thing, right? Yeah. Every developer and every project leveraging the standard would know that thing that developer is building can be deployed on this particular section of that world. Yeah. And that's the value of all this stuff. And then as a creator, as a developer, world builder, You can leverage any of this stuff, right? This could represent the size of the particular parcel, and this could represent the height of the particular parcel. As a matter of fact, in our Mscribe website, we sort of did that. If you press number 2, you are looking at all the different parcels' relative height based on the size of the value.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. And
so yeah.
And then number 3 is just a representation of virtual bytes.
Yeah.
And so now you're seeing like the differences in sizes of virtual bytes based on this visualizer.
Agreed. And I think that shouldn't be overlooked. That's also, and it's not just the ID components of what Bitmap enables as far as providing standard framework to build on top of, so that we have a better chance at having an interoperable, metaverse layer.
Yeah.
It's another thing that shouldn't be disregarded is it's the non-arbitrary mechanisms of sourcing information, bits of data from the Bitcoin blockchain to generate new value, right? If you wanted to create like a mechanism where we're randomly, you're going to randomly have like a spatial allocation within our virtual environment, right? Kind of like in this case, you get 1, 2, 4, 8.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely arbitrary, right?
Yeah, correct.
It's not dependent on anything as far as like what your bitmap actually contains as far as information or data.
Yeah.
You could have leveraged that and created a much more non-arbitrary process. Like, the V bytes of your transaction is actually going to be, what determines how much space within this VE you're going to get.
Yeah, and
I mean, and none of this is to say like this has to be done, but
yeah, correct. I was just gonna say it's like you don't have to leverage the standard if you don't want to. But what we're saying is, if you don't leverage the standard, there's going to be consequences of interoperability.
Correct. Well, yeah, because if you're not leveraging the standard, you're basically just doing what already exists. Like if you want to see what that is, it's just they're just silos, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's fine. There's multi-billion-dollar silos out there in Sandbox and
mm-hmm.
Decentraland and other side,
mm-hmm.
right? But that it goes against I think what the ethos of what Bitmap is, or like the opportunity of creating a much more cohesive ecosystem, like at the technical level, not just like community, right?
Yeah, because Decentraland, Sandbox, and the other side, they had no framework.
None.
It had to be arbitrary in the same way that Bitcoin is arbitrary, right?
Yeah.
It's randomly 21 million, right?
Exactly. And it's not to like throw shade at Decentraland or these early metaverses, right? It's expected, like everything starts out like that because the first renditions of its technology or
the first time anybody does anything is not going to be
the
best version of it. Yeah,
right. They're just trying to like prove these things can even happen or exist, and so they're laying like foundations. But over time, okay, we figure out what are the big critical infrastructure problems. Now we need to build better. Yeah. This next time we do it, and that's the opportunity of Bitmap, right?
Yeah, correct.
This is that next chance on a whole new blockchain layer, right?
Yeah, and we could be interpreting this completely wrong, so we would have to catch up with Dirk and Bob on this. But it seems to me that all the 3,500 Bitmap holders are going to be living in the same space, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
However, each 3,500 or each one of the 3,500 has potential, right, to be its own space. So how I would do it is I would make 3,500 versions of these islands, and then I would just superimpose one of these maps, one of these bitmaps on top of it, right?
Yeah.
I would superimpose that on top of this island, and then the owner of that bitmap can then distribute the parcels, the segments, the little squares.
Yes. And that is the reason why the parcel inscription standard was even created in the first place.
Exactly.
It's to support exactly that.
And so now this owner of this bitmap, right, in the xSpectre ecosystem can now create a community that's in 3D.
And the whole ecosystem is aligned with the standard so that the developers can actually introduce more technical frameworks that we can build applications and service these people. Again, keep in mind, 99% of people who are going to own digital virtual land in the metaverse are not going to be developers or content creators in any way.
Yeah.
So if we don't account for that and we don't consider that, we're going to have a very non-functional, very non-engaging, a really crappy metaverse. right?
Yeah, and I say
yeah.
superimpose, right? You take this square and you superimpose it on top of this map. But you don't have to do that that way. You could just take all the 2,000 transactions and just like put them anywhere you want within the map, right? But it's still, you know, the same transaction ID number, right? The same, you know, nomenclature is across the map here. It doesn't have to be like a perfect square like this represents.
Yeah,
because this is also arbitrary. Why is it a square? You know, why isn't it a circle, right?
Yeah.
Why isn't it a pyramid or,
it's true.
you know, 3D object, cube?
Yeah, like right now, the market really likes the idea of how these things are rendered, right? The Bitfeed Live visual display standard, I would call it. Like that is like, as of right now, what the market respects, and they're finding value in that, right? The whole punks thing and I think, what do they call, like Mandalorians or something? Mandarians or something? Mondrians. Yeah. There's others, you know, they're finding these confirmations as like, you know, something of value, but that's not to say like it doesn't have to be like that, right?
Well, I mean, the visualizer is arbitrary, right?
Right.
So it can look that way, but also cannot, right? So just like they distributed the world here in like these segments, you could do the exact same thing.
You can
with these 1,956 transactions, which are parcels.
Yeah, which is not far off from, I guess, 3,500, right?
Well, this one bitmap has almost 2,000 transactions. So what I'm saying is, you have 3,500 bitmaps, meaning 3,500 different islands. Yeah, and each bitmap is going to have different parcel counts because each bitmap is different.
Correct. Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's not far off. Like if you use that map you just had pulled off, it has 2,000 transactions. It's not far off, and that's only one bitmap.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Then kind of like, you know, burning 3,500 bitmaps.
Yeah.
Instead of just leveraging like the innate properties of one to produce this virtual environment, right? And that is the point. And if everybody kind of aligns with that, and you know, that is kind of like, that is the consensus, right? That we all need to, you know, agree upon. Like that is the value of the bitmap theory. Yeah, and it's all there. It was all laid forth.
And here's the thing: it's like we come with these thoughts from like, you know, 4 years of experience building in like these metaverses. But the way that we look at things is that from a developer standpoint, you can deploy content in each of these squares if it's designed that way.
Yeah. And
so people around the globe, developers, can make content that is deployable in each of these squares. So say, for example, Iman and these two squares, I own one, Iman owns the other one. You'll be able to go to an app store and deploy content on top of your square, and I can do the exact same thing. But it has to be designed in that way in order to enable that.
Right.
And the reason why we're so kind of bullish on this is because not only do we have our own app store, but we feel like that this is the mechanism that will bring in tons of developers and content for anyone to purchase and deploy.
So the problem, so what you said is, this xSpectre can do exactly that still, even like if they operate outside of the frameworks of these parcels, whatever. They can have apps.
Sure.
They can have deployable content.
But it has to be designed that way, though.
Which I'm sure they are. You know,
I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know. Well, let's assume they are.
I don't think that's a safe assumption, to be honest.
Do we know what districts they have? Because what if they're just single transactions, all of them?
No, they're not. They're in the later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it could work with single transactions, right? Because then you wouldn't be burning all the parcels.
Correct, but it could. But they got their 3,500 on the last day of blockout.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, of course you could do this with single districts, I guess, right? And then within those districts is just one parcel.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you know, that's subjective, right? Some of those people who own those like single parcels might, as far as what I'm seeing from like the market, is like the value of these, you know, single blocks.
Yeah.
Or single parcel blocks is like, you know, you don't have any outside noise. It's like I get to create whatever it is I want in like an isolated virtual experience, right?
Yeah.
That can be valuable to, like, let's say like a company, I don't know, like a fucking Nike, but also, of course, Nike existing in like a very large community is a big deal too. But let's say they have like a root bitmap where, like, you know, where they have their presence all throughout all these like larger scale bitmaps. little Nike kiosks or like Nike AdWords, they all have direct portaling to this one bitmap that's a single block.
Yeah.
Just Nike fucking bonanza.
Yeah, sure.
I could see that. And I think the market is starting to interpret these like solo blocks as that. Right?
Yeah. And so here's the value of doing that, and is each bitmap holder from the xSpectre network, each one is, the distribution is about the entire island. And so now the district owner can control like the outer parts of the island and like put whatever they want there, right? So it adds value to the district versus the value to the parcel.
Yeah.
Right. The parcel holders of this island are going to be sort of like in the city, right? They're going to be building here and like deploying content here, but the district owner can be deploying content out here.
Correct. So
as a version, I mean, I'm not saying that this is going to happen like with xSpectre or anything or any other project. This is just one interpretation of implementing the bitmap standard.
Right. Right. But I want to get back to that assumption that you've completely thrown off the table. It's like, assume that they are creating that application deployment process on behalf of the users who are part of that ecosystem that they're building, this virtual environment. That is what, like, a metaverse developer should enable this type of thing. If they understand the assumption that 99% of their user base will not know how to create content on their own. You should provision this type of technical ability. But anyways, let's assume they do that. And the problem that they're developing all this rich technical features outside of the standard itself. It's forcing the developers who can make this content to pick silos instead of like if everything is operating under that standard infrastructure layer. Developers don't have to pick anymore. All the content they create is cross-deployable in all these different virtual environments.
Yeah.
Right? That is the value. That's what we mean, like, interoperability is so important here.
Yeah, and if we take a look at the existing environment with like operating systems, we have Mac and Windows, and there's some on the fringe. But typically, as a developer, you build an app for Windows and then an app for Mac. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? There isn't like 50 different operating systems.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a good thing, even though that sounds bad.
Yeah.
Right. But that's why it's important to follow these standards so that the developers, like you're saying, don't have to pick a silo.
Yeah.
That is the problem with existing metaverses. People had picked a silo.
And it's what's happening with blockchain too. It's like if you're a developer, you want to build like a DeFi ecosystem or a PFP project, you're locked into the liquidity situation of whatever silo you choose.
Yeah, and to go back to like the comment about not assuming that they're going to enable that, it's very hard to do that. It's very hard to develop SDKs on top of your operating system that you chose, and there's limitations to like to the decisions, right? For example, they're running Unreal Engine, and you for now you have to have a PC and you have to download the PC application to run their world, and so that poses a problem to some people. Like, for example, we don't have PCs, right? But this is okay. I mean, people, most of the gamers out there have PCs and they game on their PC. Yeah. So it's fine, right? Yeah. What I'm saying is you when you design your worlds, you have to pick a certain stack. That's why we keep talking about operating systems and stacks, because that's essentially what is happening when you're building on top of these worlds. Yeah. And so once you pick that stack, then you have to build an SDK to allow others to leverage the SDK to have content deployable there. Correct. And then you have to, once it's deployable, then you have to use the Bitmap standard, the ID system, so that it makes it interoperable. Like the framework is interoperable amongst all the developers. 1000%. So if you don't use that standard, how are you gonna design a deployment system? It's just gonna be another arbitrary deployment system, right? Yeah. So this is like this is why this part of the metaverse building is so complex. Right. It's why, like, Trevor faded bitmaps like so so quickly. I refer back to that initial conversation we had with him on that Twitter space. Is that what they call it? Yeah, correct. Yeah, his main contention point was like, dude, this whole thing sounds cool and all, but you guys don't understand like the technical threshold as far as like value creation in the metaverse space. I guess he's probably seen like what happened over the last 3 or 4 years, just like we have, right? He wasn't involved in any of it, I don't think, but he was like an observer, right? Sure. He's like, holy shit, it's hard to actually do anything Yeah.
for the metaverse. It's way easier over here, like spin up little 2D images and create community around that.
Yeah, I mean,
that worked.
AAA games are in the tens to hundreds of millions of dollars of development.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So,
and even with that, sometimes they don't get it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it is a difficult realm, right? It's very complex, and yeah, it's technically intense. Right.
So this is why, like, it's so important to leverage the Bitmap standard, because we're all like seeing all the working together. We're all seeing the exact same problems.
Correct.
And we're all building solutions to those problems.
Yeah, that's why Bitmap is so powerful potentially. Like, yeah, it's like we're all kind of like combining our resources, whether it's like actually financial, to where the financial resources allows us to onboard more developers basically, but we're all contributing to the same stack essentially over time.
That's right.
The stack that becomes the framework where future devs can like come on and deploy and create new value. And as of now, that hasn't been the case.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what makes us super ultra bullish. So, but in order for that to actually come to fruition, we need all developers to basically respect the standard and like how it was, proposed in the first place.
To understand it, right? To basically understand it, because I think once developers see this and they understand like the ethos and like the point of Bitmap, it's pretty easy to get them on board because they know what it means to build on top of standards.
Yeah.
They already inherently know that.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. It's the rest of us, the users of the space, who don't necessarily know that this is happening. Like you don't, when you go on the internet, you don't necessarily know you're using TCP/IP. Right. You don't know that when you go to google.com, you're really going to an IP address.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to know that. Right. You and I don't need to know what's happening like on top of this virtual world. We don't need to know that, but the developers need to be on the same page here in terms of leveraging the standards.
Yeah, 1,000%. So all this to say is just it's early days, right? So nobody's like doing anything right or wrong in this specific moment in time when it comes to like trying to do anything. Anybody doing anything is doing it right?
Yes,
because this shit is so nascent and like it just was birthed literally like a month ago.
Yeah.
So to assume everybody knows like what the hell's going on and like everybody's gonna like just fucking knock it out the park off the rip.
Yeah.
Failed assumption,
Yeah.
But so that's why we kind of have to kind of like step in here and again inject our experience into we've been like, we can't say this enough. We spent the last 4 years of our lives dedicated to solving some of these problems.
Yeah.
Right. And we've built a company around that. And we're on our way to like really provisioning, I guess, like components of this, but we can't do it alone. That's something we figured out. It's like, dude, this is somehow we've been tasked with like, having to solve these technical dilemmas.
Yeah.
And it's really, it seems almost like we're the only ones addressing it or thinking about them. But in context of that, we understand, like we would come to the realization, like we are not enough.
Yeah. We can't be enough.
It's like saying, we could build the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely not.
We cannot. Like this metaverse thing is going to be a ginormous endeavor, and it needs the contribution from many, many, many different, developers.
All right, I-Man. So let's plan this out, dude. Let's see what
how do you always do this, dude? You put me on the spot.
I need to challenge you because we gotta let everybody know that we're on the same page, and then have everybody understand like what page we're on, and then have them understand like whether trying to figure out whether we're right or wrong. Right.
Okay. So what are you gonna do to me?
So let's do this. All right. So we have a map here, dude.
Yeah.
And so let's do our own sort of pitch, right? If we were to sell, a bunch of bitmaps or whatever. So let's do our pitch. So our pitch would be, it's like we're gonna sell 100 bitmaps, right? And of the 100 bitmaps, they're basically 100 different islands.
Okay.
And if you get one of our bitmaps, you're going to get one of these islands. It's going to be procedurally generated. They're all going to be unique because we built this system. And here's how some of the islands look like, and we show a video.
Right on. I'm already super tantalated. Yeah. What else? What else you throwing at me, dude?
Okay, so each bitmap each has a random set of transactions, right? Because I showed you one. The latest one has 1956 transactions, right? And all those 1956 are just going to be randomly distributed on top of this this green patch here.
Okay.
Okay. So if you get one of these bitmaps, you'll have, whatever the transaction count of that bitmap is, and all those parcels are going to be scattered throughout this green patch.
Okay.
But because you're the bitmap owner, we're going to allow you to add whatever it is you want on the perimeter, right? It could be anything. You could partner up with Nike and have a bunch of Nike flags on the perimeter.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And pretty much do anything that you want on the outside because you're the district owner.
Right. So yeah, because the ownership of the parcels belongs to the parcel inscription owners, right?
Correct.
And yeah, you as a district owner, we don't know how they distributed them. Maybe they did like some sort of like sale, just like xSpectre is trying to do now. Like you could do a parcel sale, right?
Yeah. Correct.
Under this plan you're outlining.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Keep going.
So now you are this island owner. You know that you can build on the outside because you're the island owner, but you want to cultivate a community. So you call this, this island
Fantasy Island.
Fantasy Island. Right?
Remember that show, dude?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it, dude. Okay. For real this time.
So now you got Fantasy Island. You branded it, right? It's like, come join my Fantasy Island.
Fuck yeah, dude, I'm in. Okay, what else?
There's 1,956 parcels. They're all sized according to the Bitmap Standard. I'm using the virtual bytes to represent the size. And, come join. And I'm selling each parcel for $50.
Okay.
And so you sell out. All of a sudden, now you have a community, 1,000 people, right? They're part of this island, and they're able to deploy anything that they want on top of this island through an app store. An app store developed by the community. They can basically be DeFi projects, little games, whatever.
Okay.
But they're all equally purchasable, deployable, and it's your space on the Fantasy Island as a parcel owner.
Cool.
So this is our interpretation of like how we would do it.
Okay.
If we were doing the sale.
Right.
So, I guess the question is like, does that make sense to people? Like in the structure of the bitmap, like being able to first cultivate a community of developers who are making apps, then cultivate a community of people who want, virtual space of a given, let's say influencer or somebody who's doing Fantasy Island, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can be anything still. Like the only thing, it's just the ownership allocation is the only thing in my mind that needs to be like parcel inscription, right? Yeah. Like if you're trying to onboard community was like the key word you said.
Yeah.
And the mechanism to do that is to distribute the parcels within the bitmap, right? Everything else is just noise, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like you just came up with like a whole marketing campaign for like this Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
But there's going to be an infinite, spectrum of like attempts to do exactly what you just did.
Yeah.
Right. To convince me to be a part of this community. Right.
Yeah.
And to, to onboard essentially.
Yeah.
And not every single environment is. I'm assuming this is a traversable environment. It looks like it's an open world ecosystem, and then people are going to have like, plots within it basically.
Yeah.
But not every single bitmap is going to be that.
No, it's not.
Because that's going to introduce, I don't know, probably like, technical issues, right? There's going to be like server capacity problems. There's going to be like a lot of
and that's
crashing and shit like that.
Yeah, that's why I brought this up, because think about what I just said. 100 bitmaps, each bitmap represents its own island. And that island needs to be hosted somewhere by somebody.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And then 100 districts are going to be servicing like their own virtual world, and each virtual world has like potentially 2,000 to 3,000 landholders. Or parcel holders.
Yeah.
So that's 2,000 to 3,000 people just as owners. And then this is like open to the public to come and visit.
Yeah, the owners. Yeah. You want to deploy and create cool shit to make it an actual experience that people want to like come visit and like remain engaged and to participate in. So we're talking potentially how many users daily actively, like thousands maybe?
Yeah. If you've created a community who's like building and deploying stuff, like interesting stuff. Yeah.
You might have thousands of people logging in at the same time. There's a big event, right?
Yeah. So here's the challenge. It's like the project that is hosting the type of experience, they have to host like 100 different bitmap servers and like like it's a technical endeavor to enable this, even though it seems like to be the most reasonable way to do something.
Yeah, and of course, this is the cost. So you're describing a business, basically.
Right.
If you're successful in this, attempt, you've leveraged the Bitmap protocol and standard correctly. You know, you've acquired 100 bitmaps and you've distributed them through the parcel inscription standard process, and you've created the right incentive alignment, I guess, to form the right communities to be a part and contribute to all this stuff. Now you have 100 active, Bitmap virtual environments.
Right.
They all have their unique communities, their unique ownership within them, and there's economic activity potentially happening in them. There's microtransactions happening. You're generating revenue.
Yes.
You've built a business in the metaverse.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I feel like that's that's
is that
desirable.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
It's like that's how it should look.
I feel
right?
like it seems like that's right.
Yeah, I think so too.
The reason why I wanted to kind of outline this scenario is because I wanted people to visualize this potential and come up with holes, right? Come up with hey, if you do this, the consequences is that, right? So yeah, I mean, I feel like that's now here's the technical challenge to do this is the servers and all that stuff to run this whole thing.
Well, yeah, but that's just part of the business. You know?
It's like you get a domain for a website and then you have to host it somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
It's it's like coming up with a good game. And as your game gets more and more popular, you got to account for these, these infrastructure costs, right? To support your user base and stuff like that. And it's a cost at the end of the day. And it's going to introduce new vectors of, I guess, centralization, which people are going to have to basically get used to, because we've seen if you try to decentralize that, you're going to have a non-playable environment, basically.
Yeah.
So these are the trade-offs that people don't know yet. There's going to be developers that are going to stick to the whole everything must be decentralized narrative.
Yeah.
And they're going to learn real quick what that actually ends up looking like from a user experience perspective.
Yeah.
What are you about to do? Literally show Decentraland or what?
No.
It's let's get in there, dude.
Yeah, right.
Just so you guys can see.
I want to bring up the second trip again.
Oh, okay. So this is not that. This is very centralized.
Let me mute this. But what I want to do is I want to kind of highlight some stuff here. All these people that you're seeing here, they're all connected to one of many servers, but everything's being fed to your computer. To do this is extremely expensive, right? This would be cool if this was your Bitmap, man.
Fuck yeah.
But I doubt that you have several hundreds of thousands of dollars to support this event, to support, thousands of people to go and collect these orbs.
Probably not. That's why I think these types of events at this scale will probably be those single plot bitmaps where the parties interested in owning those would be well-funded ones.
Yeah.
Big IPs, big brands, big projects and stuff. They're going to want to have space dedicated to have, events like this, right? Where they can feasibly afford to do that, host them, right? But us, average Bitmap owners, why not deploy this type of virtual environment stack or something similar to it?
Yeah.
And the limitations, 100 people can come in at any one point in time. Seems more sustainable, right?
Yeah. And I bring this up because in order to enable this, would be cool if all bitmaps, had this capability, right?
Of course.
But it's just too expensive, and it's just complex to kind of host this for every single bitmap. So
go ahead and run it a little bit, dude. I want to see some of the oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, this is insane, dude.
See some action, dude.
Yeah. So the whole point is to understand what is technically, possible, if you had infinite money, to scale it down to something that's more reasonable and scalable, in the sense that if you are we could call it a network provider, right? The network provider is provisioning the island, if you will. And then the island is being leveraged, is being designed according to the Bitmap standard, where you can have all those parcels be a piece of that island. And then the operating system is whatever this is, right? Unreal Engine, the networking stack here,
Mhm.
like all that
Yeah.
stuff still needs to be kind of designed as part of this network architecture.
100%. Yeah.
So-
and that's going to take the longest time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's going to require the most amount of like funding
and effort and
yeah, it's going to be a beast of an endeavor, right? So yeah, don't expect that tomorrow. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's just the reality of it, right? We got to
Yeah.
keep it real on this channel, dude. We're not going to feed you, hopium of like
Yeah.
fake news. Like that's not us, dude. We're going to tell you like straight up honest
yeah.
what is actually happening in this space, right? Like what to really expect.
Yeah. And personally, I want to enable this.
Well, we've been working towards that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I want all Bitmap holders to
Yeah.
run our stack that runs this.
1,000%. Yeah, we are actually internally motivated, right? That's why we've been testing and attending these events. And if you don't know what this is the other side,
Yeah, the other side.
the demos. But this one specifically is demonstrating that networking stack called
Yeah.
Morpheus, right?
Correct.
Which has been in development for like a decade.
Yeah.
Took hundreds of millions of dollars
That's
of
right.
funding to like actually, I guess, perfect to get it to this like performance level.
Yeah.
And this is something that can be leveraged like for all of the metaverse, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it can be, but like
It
you said, it
can
has
be.
costly ramifications, right?
Yeah, and as new things get developed and
Yeah, they'll
as-
scale over time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They'll get cheaper and cheaper.
Correct. But the other demos they've been doing are things like MML, like metaverse markup languages, which is much more like content focused for developers, again, to like, build highly functional application grade content, right? And that is interoperable in the sense like now people can like, leverage the same like coding framework, which is MML,
Yeah.
to like deploy these things in real time into these virtual environments and like have them communicate across these virtual environments, and like things that happen here happen there.
That's right.
That's beautiful, right?
Yes.
And we want to enable that as much as possible.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah. So, so we have about 5 minutes left. I think the big takeaway here is that it's important for anyone building on top of Bitmap to leverage the standard because it allows other developers to enable this interoperable future, right?
Yeah.
And you want to do that because you want to leverage the network effect.
correct.
Because if you don't leverage the standards, you are siloing yourself, and which could be successful anyway.
Yeah, like we said, we've already seen multi-billion-dollar silos.
Yeah.
It's not it's up to the market to determine whether or not they want to be a part of that, or again, part of like something that's interlinked with the cohesion of the Bitmap standard. Right?
Yeah.
It's market forces, dude. They will decide.
Yeah, but just like the internet is leveraging the standards, it's a multi-trillion-dollar, product of humanity, right? The metaverse could be a multi-trillion-dollar product of humanity as well.
Yeah.
But it can't be when it's a bunch of silos.
Totally agree, dude. Okay, so having said all that,
Yeah, hopefully that makes some sense because we went deep into the experience base there.
I guess so. And yeah, this is definitely like bringing back old memories of like early days of Decentraland, where
Yeah.
we'd have conversations like this normally, right?
Yeah, we
Like-
definitely did.
Like all the time, dude. And it's amazing because like that was like 3 years ago, and we're largely like in the same place. Like, we're like pretty much begging for like others to like hear us
yeah.
and like align with what it is we're saying, right? And like,
Yeah.
but I guess it's been difficult because of, again, the siloing. That's why again I want to keep re-emphasizing this. Bitmap might be that inflection point. Now
It can be.
it can be. It could also completely fail.
It could.
if everyone
Yes.
just like ignores
Yes.
like what's actually, valuable about this whole experiment, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point. We have to recognize the value in what Bitmap is. It's not the
Mhm.
fact that we hold bitmaps and like the floor price is going. Who gives a shit about floor prices, dude?
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of like sentiment out there. It's like we need to just restrict everything. Kill like implement an update where like no more new blocks.
Yeah. What?
I've seen people say that, like notable people who are like, dude, it's like, how are bags, dude? What about the bags? What are you doing, Batoshi? You're losing it.
Yeah.
How dare you like allow more bitmaps to be created?
Yeah.
Like you're fucking all of us, don't you understand?
Yeah.
And it's flawed, and it's
because
it's,
the number goes up and then what?
And what? Nothing. Then number goes down.
Yeah.
Every time we've seen it.
Yeah.
If number goes up for like artificial reasons, number goes down
faster than it goes up. Yeah.
Right. So the only thing that makes number go up and stay up is real value.
Yes.
Actual value.
Have you guys seen Tesla stock, by the way?
Yes.
Over a spectrum of time, it just goes up.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they keep adding value. Bitcoin, same thing.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that's the nature of these markets. So that's why, Web3 and crypto has such a bad rap, because a lot of it is co-opted by these like short-term hype mechanisms and degenomics and things like that. And we could spin up beautiful narratives around all that stuff and convince a lot of people to kind of like come in droves.
Yeah.
And that, we got attacked for that last cycle for like play to earn. Everybody called it like a giant Ponzi and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
I don't think it was like a Ponzi. It was just like a flawed concept,
Yeah, flawed economic design.
Correct. Yeah, like the attempt is not like.
Yeah, the play to earn itself isn't a Ponzi.
Yeah,
it can be leveraged as a Ponzi,
which it did.
I mean, we're having a similar conversation about securities, like crypto and securities.
Yeah,
like Gary Gensler thought every token is a security, and it can be, but not every token is a security.
That's right. It just depends on who's leveraging this technology
and how you're transacting it.
Yeah, what's their motivation, right? So,
yeah. I feel like we're sane, dude, not insane.
I don't know.
What do you think, TJ?
That's just what an insane person would think.
Yeah, the fact that you're questioning your sanity is like a major red flag, dude.
God damn it.
It's okay, dude.
I question my sanity pretty often, dude. like the NPC shit that we're seeing.
Yeah.
It's like, I got to be the crazy one. I can't.
Well, why do you think you're crazy?
Because I don't like it.
No, dude, I think a lot of people don't like that.
I think that should be the common belief there.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. A lot of people are watching it. I would think you like it if you're watching it. I don't think you like stuff that don't watch.
I don't know. I don't think you're crazy. I think you're just like anti-fun. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's just like all these people are like having fun, It's just like acting like fucking robots, basically.
Yeah.
Just let them have fun, dude. They're frolicking. You know what I mean? Let them frolic, dude. Let them have some joy,
Right. So I guess, but am I crazy or not? I mean,
no, dude. You're fine, dude. You're fine. You're doing great,
Thank
dude.
you, dude.
You're doing great out there. Keep it going.
Yeah, dude. I'm tired of being this guy all the time. God damn it.
You're always gonna be this guy, dude. Sorry to tell you. Sorry to let you know.
He's not that bad, I guess.
Embrace him, dude. That's you.
I guess, dude. All right, guys, that's it for us. That's been 165. Hopefully it made some sense. There's going to be a lot of questions about what we talked about because it goes deep. Dirk, Bob, definitely reach out to us. That way we can chat about this and I don't know, just, provide some feedback and everything and, probably, I don't know, have some different design mechanics for different bitmaps that you guys have going.
Yeah, and as far as you know, by the time this podcast is out, the land sale might have already happened or something like that. So
that's true.
But yeah, it's if that's the case, yeah, and it's 3,500 bitmaps, dude. That's a lot.
Yeah, but they can adjust. They
yeah. Let's just let's just scoop up some more and let's try again.
Yeah.
All
right, that's it for us. Follow us on Twitter at the Blockrunner, at MetaZone.io, and at Rovi AI, and at MetaZone Mscribe.io, and we'll catch you in the next podcast.
Peace.